Hello, my astrology friends. This is Lada from AstroladaCom, and today my guest is beautiful and very talented astrologer Kesenya Moore. Hello, Kesenya.
Hello, Lada. So lovely to be on your channel again. It's just a delight to be here, especially talking about the topic we're going to talk about today. Thank you for having me.
And you've chosen a beautiful topic like last year. This is about the love stars of 2025. And it's not sign by sign, but you'll be mentioning a lot of different signs, I suppose, how they'll be influenced. But people need to know a little bit of astrology to understand this video, at least what their ascendant is, what's their seventh house, their fifth house, their Venus, maybe. But otherwise, I'm very excited to hear what the stars have to tell us for 2025. And by the way, Ksenia is offering, she has two courses on love. She's offering them for 30% discount to our viewers for the next few weeks. Uh, sorry. Oh. And we're going to offer them. I'll put them a link below. Anyone can connect and check those courses. One of them is Will I Find Love Again? And if there are multiple marriages in the chart. And what was the other one?
The timing of when love might come and how to work out the astrological timing. So that's a bit of a doozy. I have to say, the first one you mentioned was one of the first webinars that I ever did, and so I just have to warn people, some of the sound quality isn't the best in that webinar. I've improved my equipment since then, but the content that what I'm talking about is great. So it's worth, I think, really worth getting into both of those because they complement each other. If you want to know about love and relationship astrology.
Beautiful. I'll put the link below. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have the word. What do the
I
stars
have the word.
say?
Thank you, Lada. It is really lovely to be here talking about this topic. And it seems like I'm the relationship astrologer. That's okay by me. I like talking about this topic. And I've certainly been single and am now partnered and very happily married. So I feel like I can hopefully share on a level that people can relate to.
Oh,
Certainly, this
2024 was the year you got married, wasn't it?
it was. We actually got married twice because our first marriage, which was in January, we timed it astrologically and it was just us and a celebrant. And then we had our big wedding party a little bit later in the year when the astrology wasn't quite so good. So, yeah, a relationship astrology is, I guess, can be very predictive about when things are going to happen, but you can also utilize electional astrology as well to create good charts for marriage and so forth. So, and I think similar to you, Lada, we ended up having Venus in Capricorn,
Long lasting,
because
long lasting.
that's right. That's right. People would
And
probably not automatically think that that would be a good place, but yeah, we're very happy for a long-lived love life.
absolutely. And ours was
Mm.
love at a later age, at least for me. I was 36 already. And Venus in Capricorn is stability, longevity, and growing,
That's right.
gradually growing feelings. So
Yes, well, for us, Venus in Capricorn was in, just thinking of our marriage chart, was in the ninth house, which in Western astrology is the house of second marriage and second relationship. So it was quite apt to be there. And we're both a bit older, obviously. So yeah, second marriage for both of us and older age now. So it all fits, doesn't it? Astrology doesn't lie. But yeah, we're very happy with our relationship chart, and it's fascinating to me as a relationship astrologer to see how that marriage chart is now playing out every day in our lives. So very, very interesting. But that's actually not what we're here to talk about,
the
my
topic
marriage chart.
is part of the
It is
topic
a great.
relationships.
Maybe I should do another webinar later on looking at electional relationship astrology,
That's a
perhaps.
great idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
next time. But this video is for single people who are perhaps looking to find love and wanting love to be in their life. It's also a video for partnered people who are wondering about the progress of their relationship. And if you're not interested in love and relationship, then this video is probably not going to be very interesting for you. But there's about six big events this year that will impact relational astrology. So that's quite a lot. The first one is Venus going retrograde in Aries and Pisces, and this is going to be happening between the 1st of March 2025 through to the 12th of April 2025, that Venus will be retrograde in that part of the chart. There's so much action in that, as you can see here. Here's Venus. She's going backwards. The nodes, the North Node will be there. Neptune and Saturn are there. There's just a heap of action around this really pivotal Gandanta point in the horoscope, the change from water to fire. So it could be very karmic for people, this Venus retrograde process. There could be lovers coming back from the past for a lot of people that experience this. Really, though, when we have a Venus retrograde, as you and I both know, Lada, we may get lovers coming back from the past, but it's to tie up loose ends and end some karma. Those relationships are kind of unlikely to stay and last the long term when Venus goes retrograde. And you have a lover come back from the past, best to have no regrets and just tie up the loose ends and let it go. They also say you shouldn't get married during a Venus retrograde as well, because then you carry Venus retrograde in the chart of your marriage, like we were just talking about. So if anyone's planning on a wedding this year, I don't know that between 1st of March and 12th of April is perhaps the best time if you're looking to cast a
Unless
chart for you.
they're getting remarried again.
Well, that's true. Yeah, maybe they like Liz Taylor and marrying for a second time to the same person, then
You know what?
maybe it's a
My mom, I checked the day she got married to my dad. Both Mercury and Venus were retrograde, and they're still together.
wow.
Well, whatever, 40 something years. But it's a difficult relationship, very karmic.
Ah,
But
there you go.
yeah.
That's it. So, you have to weigh up, don't you, whether you're in for a big karmic relationship and dealing with that for the rest of your life or not, I guess. So that's actually a beautiful example of how that energy, if you like, works and how it can play out. Venus is actually, a planet of choice. And so we make these decisions, when Venus is retrograde, if you get married, you're choosing to live with that karmic relationship and let it play out as it plays out for however long it lasts. So yeah, ultimately, when Venus is retrograde, we need to be very careful about our choices in love and in everything else. Because sometimes, when Venus goes direct again, then we may sort of rethink the choices we've made and hopefully not too much regret there. Um,
Can I ask you, do you
so
know anyone who's met their partner for the first time when Venus was retrograde? I'm trying to think about.
I haven't met anybody who has been in a long-term relationship. Now, there's plenty of people I know who have met people, but the relationship hasn't lasted when Venus has been retrograde. I've had partners from the past who've come back into my life during a Venus retrograde.
All my
So,
exes contact me then. It's ridiculous.
yes, it's fascinating. But you
Especially
know
if
what
you
else?
don't have closure, where you still have
Yeah,
some pain, somehow you reconnect
yeah,
and you let go more and more each time, and it's not as painful. You kind of untie some knot.
that's it. That's it. And that's the whole point, especially at these Gandanta degrees, because they're about karmic knots and unraveling karmic knots in our psyche. So, like double whammy effect with this Venus retrograde of loosening off the karmic knots, if you like. And look, in the positive, if you break up with the partner during a Venus retrograde, it's likely that the breakup won't last and you'll end up getting back together again at some stage. That's if you want to. Of course, we have choice, Venus, after all. But they're the general gist that we have with Venus in retrograde motion. So that's something to be aware of this year. Probably more than anyone, it's going to affect Aries or Pisces rising or Virgo or Libra rising, because they'll be on the relationship axis for those signs, of course. The other things that are happening, Lara, we've got Jupiter moving into Cancer, and that, according to the Vedic system. When Jupiter aspects the seventh house by Vedic aspect, that stirs up the energy of the seventh house of commitment and relationships and partnerships. So obviously, that will have implications, and I'll talk through each sign shortly. But Venus will be aspecting Scorpio, Venus will be aspecting Pisces and Capricorn. So the
You
seventh
you
house
mean
for all
Jupiter?
those.
You mean Jupiter, not
Sorry?
Venus. You mean Jupiter, not Venus.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Jupiter. Did I say Venus? My apologies. Got to keep up with my own brain. Jupiter, yeah, will be casting Vedic aspects to these signs, including Cancer, where it's transiting. And so it's those signs and their seventh houses that will potentially be receiving some potential love themes, which we'll talk about perhaps in just a minute. Also, Saturn casts Vedic aspects to the sign opposite him, Libra, and to Gemini, 3 houses in front, and to Capricorn, 4 houses behind when he moves into Aries. And he's moving into Aries on the 25th of May this year. He'll be there until the 2nd of September. So when you get Jupiter and Saturn both aspecting the seventh house at the same time, that's a biggie for stirring up relationship energy, because you get Saturn who has great directional strength in the seventh house. He's he actually brings in solid long-term commitment and maturity in relationship. Like we were talking about before with Venus in Capricorn, it's a similar kind of thing. You get that commitment and that willingness to work hard on a relationship and make it work. So you do kind of need um, Saturn involved and aspecting and stirring up the energy of the seventh house to see a long-term relationship evolve. And Jupiter brings the joy and the delight and all the good emotions that we look for and the good feelings and happiness that we look for in relationship as well. So it's quite potent when these two are both aspecting the seventh house. And
So
I'll talk
that's
about which sign.
Cancer rising. So Cancer for Cancer rising, both Jupiter and Saturn are aspecting the seventh house. But when
That's
Saturn
right.
Pisces, it will be for Pisces seventh house as well, isn't it? And so for Virgo,
So currently, there will be a window when Pisces is having both aspects. Oh no, not this year. It was when Jupiter was in Taurus.
no,
He
no, no,
would
no,
be
no,
he.
because Jupiter in Cancer trine Pisces and Saturn is in Pisces for 9 months this year. So they both
That's
active.
right. But
So
then
Virgo
they need
rising.
to ask. Yes, so that's right. So it's Virgo. So there, just to clarify that there are 5 signs that are going to have that happen to them this year. So if you're single and looking for commitment, or if you're in a partnership, you'll find that this energy will stir up the up leveling and the restructuring and improvement of your relationship. And the 5 signs that are having that happen to them are Aries, Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, and Sagittarius. This is your year. So it doesn't happen every year that every sign gets triggered. So you need to be able to look ahead and see when all these aspects are going to stir up the energy, because it changes as Jupiter changes signs and as Saturn changes signs. So those 5 signs have a lot of beneficial, lucky energy going on this year with that combination. And I'll talk about the dates that that's occurring when you're going to be in that zone for that good energy shortly, when I run through all signs rather quickly. So you'll see some impacts then. It's more impactful if you've got something in your personal natal chart that is also triggering relationships, such as a conjunction of the progressed moon and the progressed sun. If that's happening, then that'll get you over the line and see more manifestation of love and relationship. There's a whole lot of other aspects which I talk about in my courses as well that can trigger love themes. But this one is a big one. If this is happening, then you just need 1 or 2 other triggers, and boom, your relationship is really a major focus for the year ahead for some reason or another. So usually when Jupiter is aspecting the seventh house, that sort of brings more joy over the thought and the experience of sharing life with somebody else. Learning, Jupiter is learning, comes through partnerships, and sort of expansion of who we are comes through being in partnership. Self-growth occurs through partnership. You might be, when Jupiter is aspecting the seventh house, more attracted to sort of Jupiter-like people, wealthy people, spiritual people, sometimes famous people, even foreign people you might be able to kindle a relationship with. And we were talking a little before this video started, Lada. Certainly, Jupiter was transiting my first house when David and I began our relationship, and he's from America and I'm from Australia. So, definitely a foreign influence going on there, thanks to Jupiter stirring up that energy. And just feeling this love and benevolence to our partners is easier when Jupiter is aspecting the seventh house. So if you start a relationship with a Jupiter aspect to the seventh house, it tends to bring happiness and good fortune in relationship. That said, though, it's important to mention that Jupiter can sometimes bring divorce for relationships that are not flourishing. And the reason that is because Jupiter gives you more hope. Oh, look, this relationship's crap, but I think there's better for me out there. I am hopeful of a better relationship. And so sometimes, and on some occasions, a Jupiter stirring up the energy of the seventh house makes you less resigned to something that's crappy, and you won't stand for less than the best, so to speak. So unsatisfactory relationships can sometimes conclude. Just need to point that out as well. Not that he's a planet of divorce, but it's because you feel so buoyant and hopeful and optimistic about relationships that happens. And certainly when Saturn is aspecting the seventh house, he sort of manifested a desire, like I said, for more mature commitment. There might be karmic relationships that come in, like predestined relationships, love and partnerships that like from a previous incarnation that you get to resolve things with and rectify things with now. You're also restructuring the needs of your heart with a Saturn aspect to the seventh house, and focusing on learning to compromise with others can also be at the forefront of the duration of that transit. Certainly, Saturn's been aspecting my seventh house from Pisces for the last 2.5 years. And that's been a big thing, learning to compromise and learning to, having been on my own for 14 years before that as a single mum, I just did things my own way. So big learning curve, sort of managing to consider more than just myself and my kids, now my husband as well. Has been a big learning curve, but a good learning curve. Again, with Saturn sometimes aspecting the seventh house, relationships where we're not invested for the long term can sometimes come to an end, because Saturn's about the long term. It's about endurance, about commitment and responsibility in relationships. And if we're not willing to give that, then things can crumble away. So if you're single and you're having a Saturn aspect to the seventh house, you can have one of the most serious and intense love relationships of your life come in. So it can be, a relationship with a big age gap, or it could manifest that you are infatuated with maybe an unsuitable partner. So be forewarned, forearmed about this, who is coming into your life karmically to teach you about relationships, to make you up level your own skills in relationships and your own willingness to honor the self in relationships and things like that. So remain grounded when you're in a relationship where Saturn is aspecting the seventh house. Keep realistic, keep as objective as possible that you can about a relationship. Now, there's another couple of things, and I don't want to get to all signs, so sorry if I'm talking everybody's ear off here, but Saturn, so we've talked about Saturn in Aries and the aspects he's going to make. Uranus is going into Gemini from the 7th of July through to the 8th of November. And, when Uranus, I should say, is in the seventh house, and I'll talk about this for Sagittarius rising and any other signs where this is going to be of influence and making an impact. It's, for example, if, what do we got? If for Aquarius, for you, Lada, when Uranus is transiting the fifth house, this can bring experiences in love that shake you out of a rut in your life, that sort of get you unstuck if you've been feeling stuck in your love life, that sort of thing. It can bring more freedom, more liberation, more excitement in your love commitment, shaking up how you relate to other people in general. And you can become more objective and more detached in your view to a commitment now. And sort of take things less personally, less, to heart. So, you know, you're a bit tougher, a bit more stoic perhaps as well. But it's a real calling card for being more honest in relationships when Uranus moves through one of the relationship houses. No hiding feelings, no pretending anymore. You might even have relationships with, for those of us who are single, more Uranian people, exotic people, exciting people, eccentric people, free-spirited people who again help shake you out of a rut, out of a stuck situation. So sometimes though Uranus by transit of the seventh house doesn't necessarily bring long-lasting relationships to single people, but if you've got these aspects from Saturn at the same time, it can counteract the shortness of a relationship and turn an exciting relationship into a big long-term lasting relationship that's quite thrilling. So
So,
if
so
you've got both those going on,
Sagittarius rising people, they would actually, for the next 2, 3 years, they would have Uranus in the seventh house and Saturn aspecting. So it can be something
exactly
great,
right.
exciting, but lasting at the same time.
I
Okay.
know, and I'm excited because my husband's a Sagittarius rising, so we're about to have a lot of fun, I think.
Uh,
Long-lasting excitement. Let's hope
long
it's all
lasting
for the best.
excitement. Awesome.
Now, Neptune, as well as Saturn, is moving into Aries, and Neptune is going to be there from the 30th of March through to the 23rd of October. So the majority of the year. And so we're going to talk about the transits that will be transiting the seventh house. Now, Neptune, when he transits oh, it's so interesting, Neptune transiting a relationship house because we can have like soulmate connections with people or exquisite romance and spiritualized love. Those sorts of things can come in for a single person, or if you're experiencing it and you're already partnered, it can really lift the relationship to this higher sort of unconditionally loving level of vibration that Neptune has, which is so beautiful. Um, it can bring a bit of a loss of objectivity in relationships, though. We're more heart-centered and imagining, great things about our partner, and we can lose groundedness. So we need to be kind of careful to keep one foot in the field of realism and the other foot in, oh, love is wonderful and romantic and great. So try to keep the balance there if you're having a Neptune transit. And this will be any Libran people. I'm a Libran moon, so I have to keep my balance. Or if you're Libra rising, but also again, it could be a Sagittarius person too, because Sagittarius is transiting the fifth house of love and romance. So double whammy there for Sagittarius. They're in for quite a year, aren't they? Now,
Relationship, and it carries into the following years that relationships are so activated for them, not just 2025.
that's right. 14 years. So it's a hefty, long transit. A lot of what you get out of a Neptune transit depends on the aspects you've got to your natal Neptune. If you've got only good aspects, then you tend to get the high vibrational results of Neptune in a transit like this, a gift from the divine, spiritualized love and that sort of thing. If you've got a mix of good, let's say, hard and beneficial aspects, then you get sort of a mix of Neptune responses. And if you only have the challenging aspects, you need to do the work around, seeking to consciously remain grounded and realistic about relationships so that you don't end up disappointed, so that you don't end up deluded or deceived by a potential partner or lover as well. Get advice from people who you regard as wise if you have only difficult aspects to your Neptune, and listen to the advice you receive. You don't want to wind up 14 years down the track and feel like you've lost 14 years of your life to a deceptive relationship or something terrible like that. Not that I don't wish that on anyone. And so I'm just sharing, to be forewarned and forearmed, get advice, listen to your friends about the relationships that you enter into if you've got Neptune transiting a relationship house. And Pluto's already in Aquarius, as you can tell us all about, Lada, as he's moving through your first house, which is quite an exciting transit. But if you're a Leo rising person, then he's moving through your seventh house, or if he's moving through your fifth house, if you're Libra rising, you could also consider your moon sign there. This is really intense, and it can bring, if you're single, or if you're married, so be careful, infatuations and obsessions with people that transform you. Um, in fact, for Leo rising people particularly, Pluto's transit through the seventh house is going to transform your whole dynamic with relationships. It can bring in very intense and powerful committed relationships. Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about Pluto being a very soulmate type influence, again, a bit like Neptune in that regard. So it can bring in hugely karmic relationships that change you, transform you. If you might encounter the most passionate love of your life. But because Pluto is so full on, he can actually trigger a divorce if you're in an unhappy relationship. If the relationship has been, if you're walking on eggshells and you don't feel like you own your own power in a relationship, then Pluto is going to make you go through the muck and mire to teach you to take your power back. So it could be tough if you're in that kind of a circumstance.
I can give an
But if,
example. My brother is Cancer,
yeah,
right? He had Pluto on his seventh house cusp like 10, 12
oh,
years ago. And it was there for 2.5 years, over the seventh house cusp, opposite his ascendant. First, he got divorced. And then within Pluto still on the descendant, the seventh house cusp, he met the love of his life and they're still together. And he says, they're like, Pluto has this kind of like the inseparable thing, like two merge into one kind of. So he had both experiences, the intense breakup that destroyed him. And then within the same year, he met the love of his life and they're still inseparable together. So both can happen or one of them, hopefully.
I love that. I love that because it either can happen. And so it's worth hanging out for that deep, emotional, passionate type of love relationship that we all deserved. We all deserve to know that at some point in life. And some of us have to wait longer than others for these things to come into our life because what are we waiting on? The transits of the planets to move into the right position to trigger those kinds of effects. So, some people get married, and they marry their high school sweetheart, you hear all these stories and they're together until they die. And isn't that wonderful? But that's because the transits were, let's say, in the right position to trigger that when they were young. Some of us, like David and myself, I've just moved into my 50s last year, and so we had to wait till we were that much older before that soulmate connection manifested according to the alignment of the planets. So there's always hope, is what I'm trying to say. No matter how old you are, there's always hope. And the planets keep on moving. They don't just sit there still. So the energy shifts, the energy changes, and there's hope and potential, particularly for those five signs.
You look like you're in your 30s, not in your 50s. How are you doing that?
Oh gosh, I have Saturn with Venus. I'm not doing
Ah,
anything.
you're a
The
mummy.
planet.
You're preserved. You're preserved instead of mummified. Okay.
That that's where it's at. Yeah, I'm afraid. And Jupiter, like we were talking earlier, trines the Saturn Venus, so it kind of expands that whole influence, I guess. So, but if you do have Saturn Venus in your chart, it's often an indicator for, not meeting the love of your life until you're older. David also has it in his chart as well, my husband. So both of us had to wait. We were married when we were younger, but to meet our soulmate connection happened when we were older. So, there's, like I say, always hope. And thank you for your beautiful compliment, Lana. Um, Maybe would you like to go through all signs
Yes.
and see how these energies are going to be impacting each sign. I'd really suggest perhaps looking at just the rising and the moon sign. I mean, we can look at the sun sign, but the sun, as you know, is all about autonomy, the self. It's not really a placement connected to partnership and relationship. So you can check out your sun sign if you want, but I think more important is your rising sign, which represents who you are in this incarnation and how you relate to the world around you, and the moon, which is an emotional planet. And of course, so many relationships these days come from feeling that emotional bond and connection to other people. So we might start with Aries, and I'm only going to be talking because I could talk all day, as you could imagine. I'm only going to be talking about these new placements and the new energy that we're going into, pretty much more so than the impact of the current energies here at the beginning of the year. So if you are Aries rising, sun or moon, the highly charged period where you're going to have Jupiter making where are we? Jupiter is going to be aspecting, let me just think here, Lada. What have I got? Charged period. When Jupiter and Saturn make Vedic aspects to the seventh house. So we've got Saturn by opposition. That's right. So for Aries people, it's a short little window when Saturn moves into Aries on the 25th of May. And we're going to have an aspect from Saturn to the seventh house, stirring up that energy at the same time as Jupiter is still in Gemini until the 9th of June. So from the 25th of May to the 9th of June, just a wee little window when you've got both these big guns stirring up the seventh house energy. So we discussed what that can bring about in the introduction to this video. So check that out. I won't spell it out for each and every sign, obviously. But the good news also is for Aries people, no more South Node in your seventh house. Now, this makes it when South Node moves into Virgo, your sixth house, it's leaving behind this, like wherever the South Node is an energy of letting go and loss and even excretion. So it's been for 18 months in your and this is happening next week after we're recording this, so it'll be on the 11th of January. It's been in your seventh house for 18 months. And so it's going to be easier for single people to now meet new partners, committed partnerships. And it's going to be easier to strengthen existing relationships because South Node by transit in our seventh house can weaken relationships or destabilize a partner's well-being. You know, often it's wherever the South Node is where we have a karmic duty to fulfill. And with the South Node in the seventh house for the last 18 months, Aries people have had a karmic duty to help partners through difficult times or support partners emotionally, physically, spiritually, that sort of thing. So the good news is your partners, if you're a partnered Aries, are going to be much more together now that the South Node's gone from the seventh house, and you're going to be able to, or they're going to be able to contribute more and bless the relationship that you're in with them a lot more now. So big changes from the nodes changing signs relationally. And of course, Venus is going to be retrograding partially through your first house. So pay attention to the things Lada and I discussed about that in the introduction. I'll move on. Did you want to add anything, Lada? Please chime in if you've got a story or something to add to these
Oh, no, I
energies.
don't want to interrupt you. But my
It's
dad
okay.
called
I
me,
love
so I
what.
couldn't concentrate. Sorry.
Oh, all righty. You'll have to listen back later.
Yeah.
If you are a Taurus rising, you can look at the sun too, if you want to, or the moon. Well, you're getting a singular transit aspect from Jupiter this year. So Jupiter, when he moves into Cancer on the 9th of June, will be aspecting the seventh house of your chart. Now, this is not as potent for bringing in a new relationship as when that's a committed relationship as when Saturn is also aspecting. So where's Saturn? Up here, not making any Vedic aspect to the seventh house at all. So yes, you can experience the Jupiter expansion and growth and positivity and joy that comes to relationships. So that is available to you after June. But I wouldn't necessarily say that you're in a very potent season, if you like, for attracting new relationships in any way, or even like Saturn restructures existing relationships. So it's just giving you more joy and more happiness in relationship. And who's going to argue with that? That's a lovely thing just the same. Also, you're having Uranus move into Gemini out of your first house. Now, in Vedic astrology, they don't use the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. What they do consider that every planet aspects the house it's in and the house opposite it. So in that case, if we were to consider that, then Uranus, let's say, has been aspecting your first house and by opposition, your seventh house for the last 7 years. Now, Uranus is going into Gemini on the 7th of July, and he'll be coming back into Taurus again on the 8th of Neptune, November. And so that period from the July to November is when you're going to sort of have a bit of an easing off, if you like, of the influences, the Uranian influences that I spoke about at the beginning of this video with Lada. So a lot of those Uranian influences will be starting to wind up for you now. If you've met exotic people, interesting people, eccentric people, if you've been meeting people that have been shaking you out of a rut with relationships, a lot of that stuff is going to calm down for you now and wind up for you now over the next 7 years. And that's about all that we're really seeing affecting the relationship houses. For Taurus, oh, I should add, the South Node is moving into your fifth house, Taurus. So it may, again, this is not super helpful. This is South Node energy of letting go. So it may be harder to cultivate romance in your life. Maybe you're so busy working that you don't have time for a romantic evening with your partner. Or if you're single, it might be harder to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend for the next 18 months while the South Node transits through here. But I don't want to leave you feeling discouraged, Taurus. Instead, use this time to grow the self, to develop your own sense of independence. Of course, Uranus still has a little bit of a time to go in your first house, teaching you how to do you on your terms and to embrace your authenticity and your truth. So perhaps focus your energy there, knowing that in time, the energies will shift and the triggering of the relationship houses will be more fully in effect for you. And just enjoy the pleasure of Jupiter aspecting your relationship house this year. If you are a Gemini rising, you can also consider your moon sign and to a lesser extent your sun sign. We are, just make sure I've got my little thing that stops the wheel from walking. If you are a Gemini person, you are one of the signs that are having this highly charged period for relation, commitment, and focus. And for Gemini people, it's active now, right now, up until the 25th of May. So currently, Jupiter is in your first house, making a Vedic aspect to the seventh house for a Gemini person. And you also have currently Saturn in your 10th house, making a Vedic aspect of 4 houses backwards to the 7th house. So Gemini are in the zone, right? So anything that comes along, any potential, any person that you meet, because you just never know if it's going to be the one. And I talked more about the influences of Saturn and Jupiter in the beginning of this video. So do listen back to the introduction to find out how that's going to be impacting you and how you might experience that. The South Node is leaving your fifth house this year, and that's happening from the 11th of January. So that's a blessing because now you can see more romance, more love, more affection available to you after 18 months of lean times in that regard. So because of that, and because of these aspects thrown by Saturn and Jupiter, this could be a very potent time now that you're entering into for a more intense feeling and experience of romance and love in your life. And of course, Uranus is going to move into your relationship axis. Here he is here hiding behind the arrow. This is happening after July, and Uranus will be there until November. And of course, he's going to be opposing your 7th house. So this is where he's going to spend the next 7 to 8 years of your life, bringing about many of the themes that I spoke of in the introduction that Uranus tends to bring us. Lots of change, lots of shaking out of a rut, lots of discovering who you are. And so you attract the right person for you, because in the first house, it's all about coming into your authenticity. And then you can start to attract people who meet with you and match your new authentic self. So do check out what I said in the introduction, because that's going to be very big for you. Big time right now. This is a big year relationally for our Gemini friends. Moving along, we've got Cancer. Cancer rising, Cancer moon, but also Cancer sun, if you want to consider that as well. Um, this is another one of these highly charged, highly potent signs. And the period that this potency is going to be active is going to be between the 9th of June to the 1st of September. And that's because you're going to have Jupiter in your first house at the same time as we've got Saturn in the 10th house, both making Vedic aspects. So that's that time frame, those dates that I gave you, when that potency is going to be stirred up. And I talked about the impacts and implications of what that might bring you in the introduction. Now, I'll also point out for Cancer rising people, if you're looking to meet a second committed life partner, you might be supported by the universe this year, because the North Node is moving into Pisces. And in Western astrology, the ninth house is considered to be the house that relates to your second life partner. It's the fifth house from the fifth. So it represents higher love. You know, fifth house is love and romance. Fifth house from the fifth is the next level of love and romance. So it has connections there to second life partnership. I probably am going on a bit of a tangent here, but also in ancient times, in ancient scriptures, you often see when one partner died, partners are seen from the seventh house, then in the ancient scriptures, often the man who was partnered, if his wife died, he would marry, no, it went the other way. For a woman, if her husband died, she would marry her husband's brother. So often counting three houses for a sibling from the seventh house can also indicate, in ancient terminology, in ancient understanding of marriage and relationship, the ninth house as well, if you want to go down that track. It's a bit of a tangent. So suffice to say, for Cancer people, if you're looking to meet a second life partner, then there is going to be activation from the North Node, which gives more of something being in the ninth house. So that could be quite exciting. And if you are in a second marriage, Cancer people, then there's going to be more activation of that relationship, more perhaps time spent together, more love, more feeling of connection with your partner that might eventuate too. So, yeah, Cancer is one of those lucky signs. Leo rising, Leo sun, or Leo moon people, particularly moon and rising. There's some good news that I have to give Leo people, because Saturn is no longer going to be blocking your eighth house of, eighth house of intimacy, which has been Pisces for the last 2.5 years, and in he goes to the ninth house. So no more blocking intimacy from the 25th of May. So what is the eighth house? It's our sex life. It's also our partner's resources and the ability for our partner to earn money. That may have been restricted. That may have been blocked for some of us Leos. And now as Saturn gets on out of there, our partner might be able to earn more money. They might be able to have access to resources a lot easier. And of course, sex and intimacy and all the things associated with going deep with a partner can really be enhanced now that Saturn's moved out of the way. Pluto is also in the seventh house for Leo people for the next 20 years. So especially for the Leo people who have their ascendant and their descendant in the early degrees of Leo and Aquarius, you might be about to experience more of the manifestations that Lada and I spoke about in the introduction to this video. So do check that out, because it could be quite potent for you. We're sort of looking at pretty much 1 degree of Aquarius through to maybe 4 degrees. So we use very tight orbs with Pluto, and he's really moving between sort of 1 and 3 degrees this year. So he doesn't move very far. So if you're after an exact conjunction, that's the time, the degree frame that you're working with. So yeah, if you check out the introduction, you'll hear all about what Pluto might be doing for your love life. And Leo's, it's exciting, let me say. All right, Virgo rising. And also Virgo sun and moon, if you, particularly moon, if you want to go to the sun, you can. But this is another of those signs with one of those highly charged periods that I spoke about this year, where relationship and commitment are a big focus. You might meet a new partner or you might enhance an existing relationship quite significantly. This is happening for you on the 1st of September and will last until the 13th of February 2026. And this is when you've got Jupiter in Cancer making an aspect to Pisces, your seventh house, and also Saturn, who will be Saturn will be back in Pisces at this juncture, making an aspect by transit to the seventh house. So that's the time frame for our Virgo friends. And you just need to listen to what Lada and I discussed, the impacts of Saturn and Jupiter in the introduction to find out how that might be playing out for you. Also for Virgo people, the North Node has been in your eighth house and is now moving into your seventh house. So there's a shift. You've had the North Node, which is all about getting more and being quite obsessive about things in the house of sexual activity, intimacy, and joint finances. So you've probably had a lot of that going on, a lot of good stuff coming to you in that regard. Also, the eighth house is about getting support materially from a partner. So you might have had that happening for you too for the last 18 months. And now it's actually moving into the seventh house of the partner. So instead of sort of the physical resources of your partner where you've been getting more of, it's now shifting to be something like more mental support, spiritual support, maybe physical support from a partner rather than the material things. There'll be probably still a material influence, but the emphasis now is on the connection, the commitment, the longevity, let's say, of the relationship where a lot of the energy is going. I just encourage you, Virgo, because you have the South Node in the first house, this can drain your vitality when we have this by transit for about 18 months. And I just want to encourage you not to be conscious, I should say, about being a burden to your partner where possible, because the energy is leaving the house of you, South Node energy, and a lot of the vitality is going into your partner's house if you're in a committed relationship. So it's been known that this transit of the nodes can cause one partner to be a drain on the energy and the vitality of the other partner that can lead to strain in the relationship. So forewarned, forearmed about that, the way that plays out, if you're conscious of it and you know about it, you'll be able to make wise choices to avoid that outcome. Now, if you're single, this is the transit of the nodes through your seventh house, Virgo, can bring in an exciting relationship into your life, especially if any of the eclipses is falling on your descendant this year. So expect, if that's the case, that you might have some really thrilling experiences with potential commitment or meeting a new partner. Relationships when the North Node's in the seventh house by transit can also come in with foreigners or exotic people that you didn't expect would ever happen for you. So it can be quite exciting and exhilarating. And of course, Neptune. Neptune is leaving your seventh house this year. Neptune's leaving on the 30th of March till the 23rd of October. And this is sort of beginning the end, if you like, of a 14-year influence of Neptune in the seventh house that I spoke about in the introduction to this video. So some of you will be saying, thank God he's getting out of there. And some of you will be sort of shedding a tear and sorry to see him go. It all depends on how he's been influencing your natal chart. Thank you, Virgo. Okay, Libra risings, Libra moon, Libra sun. Well, guys, the nodes are leaving your relationship axis. Here goes the North node into Pisces, South node into Virgo. This is happening on the 11th of January. So, there's going to be less of a focus on relationships for you now. You won't need to give so much attention to your partnerships, my friends. And you might actually be more required to focus on the more humdrum, duties of everyday life. North node in the sixth house that require your attention, your health, your well-being, your exercise routine, your daily work, and that kind of thing. So less of a focus on relationships coming your way. And also with that, the potential for new relationships coming in will decrease for Libran people for the time being. There'll be other years that relationship energy will be good for Librans to start new love relationships, but this is not really one of those years for Librans. Saturn is going to be aspecting Libran people's seventh house from the 25th of May through to the 2nd of September 2025. So, where is Saturn? When he's in Aries. So that's not going to be the you really want to see Jupiter making an aspect as well to stir up more positive energy in the seventh house. Saturn alone in the seventh house can tend to cause burdens and restrictions and blockages on the relationship itself or in the life of the partner. So remember, though, that Saturn is the Lord of Karma, and we need to see these responsibilities, helping our partner through these difficulties, helping support our partner through the difficult years as an opportunity to pay back our karmic dues in relationship. So if we look at it that way, a Saturn transit when there's no Jupiter aspect to the seventh house, if we see it as our karmic duty, our karmic responsibility, we tend to be able to handle it so much better because, human beings, they like to be helpful. They like to be supportive, I think, mostly. So in that case, you absolutely can be, and it's a benefit to you in helping to wipe your own karma clean, as they say. So, your opportunity for new committed relationships, like I said, not as available to you this year unless you have really powerful things occurring in your personal chart, like a conjunction of the progressed sun and the moon. And there's quite a few other things that might be happening that could bring in relationship. And of course, I can't see everybody's chart to make an assessment here. This video is more general. So, generally speaking, the relationship influence is lessening. Neptune is going to be moving into your 7th house, I should say, for the next 14 years, though, and this is beginning on the 30th of March. And of course, I discussed those effects in the introduction. So that's going to be very interesting. And of course, we also have the conjunction of Neptune and Saturn occurring at 0 degrees of Aries that's coming up well, it's not going to be exact in 2025 to the minute, but it's going to be pretty much exact by degree. And this can bring about very extreme dynamics depending on the configuration of your natal chart and where your descendant really lies. So there's kind of 3 ways that this will probably tend to manifest if it's making a conjunction with your descendant degree. Firstly, you might be deceived or have a big deception either in a new relationship or an existing relationship. You might be uncertain about an existing relationship and unclear about where it's going, or your partner might undermine you in a relationship. So that's the negative. We're starting with the bad news first. Secondly, the original structure of the relationship, what you built your relationship on, might break down a little bit. But if we remain flexible, if we seek to understand, what's happening, why are we going through this, what can we learn from this process as a couple, then you can actually end up building a more refreshed, truer, deeper, and committed love out the other side of the conjunction of Neptune and Saturn here in the 7th house. So very important. But the best outcome, and this is the one I pray is what happens for all the viewers out there at AstroLada, the best outcome is that you can manifest the biggest, most romantic and higher timeline of your relational dreams, because Neptune is our fantasies and our daydreams and what we long for. And what is Saturn? Lord of the earth realm. He brings these things into manifestation, into being. So this is the highest vibration that could come from this transit, even though Saturn is quite debilitated in the sign of Aries. So that's my fingers crossed for all our Libran friends that this could bring about. It's a shame there are no other supporting things from Jupiter or the nodes going on as well, because that could be quite potent for love and relationships. And I will point out as well, you're having Venus retrograding through the seventh house Libra. So, as I said in the introduction, there may be some partners from the past coming back into your life, wanting a bit of your attention and time. It's up to you. Venus's choice. You have free will about whether you'll invite those partners back in and take it anywhere. And as Lada illustrated with the story of her parents, they have been together for a long time with Venus retrograde in their marriage chart. It's up to us, isn't it? What we make of things. It's likely to be very karmic if somebody does come back in, and there's going to be a lot of things to work through. So just be aware of that. All right, moving along. Hope I'm not taking too long, Lada. Scorpio rising,
It's
sun, and
wonderful.
okay. Scorpio rising, sun or moon people. Well, a lot of relief is coming for your relationships this year, Scorpio, I'm happy to say. Firstly, Saturn is leaving your fifth house, Pisces, and moving into Aries. And look, when Saturn transits the fifth house, it can cause heaviness and responsibility and duties with your lovers, boyfriends, girlfriends, that sort of thing. So that might feel like a breath of fresh air to your fifth house. Neptune's also leaving your fifth house, Scorpio, and that might have been causing maybe confusion around love and boyfriends, girlfriends. You might have not been seeing your boyfriends or your girlfriends very clearly, and maybe you had over idealized romantic attitudes and dreams towards partners that now the clarity's coming. Now the realization might be coming as Neptune leaves. And of course, he's leaving on the 30th of March through to the 23rd of October. Uranus leaves your seventh house. So you've had a lot of focus on relationship houses, Scorpio, more than perhaps any other sign, perhaps for the last few years, 14 years in the case of Neptune and 7 years in the case of Uranus. So a lot of things you've been working on relationally are changing now. It's been a huge time of relationship upheavals and roller coaster rides with Uranus in the seventh house. So all those things are starting to wind up and conclude. And we often find that when a planet moves to the final 6 degrees of a sign, it gets jiggy with it. It gets busy trying to achieve what it needs to achieve, what it set out to achieve in that sign when it first moved in. So Uranus, here's Uranus now in Gemini in this chart, but Uranus is moving through the final 6 degrees of your seventh house, meaning he's wrapping up all the loose ends about how authentic you are in relationships, how real you are, how much you are following your own needs and heart in relationships. So if there's been upheavals regarding that in your relationships, Scorpio, there might be a few more little hiccups left to go, but then he's moving into Gemini and things will calm down in your seventh house of committed partnerships. And do listen to the introduction for more information about what you are saying goodbye to with Uranus leaving the seventh house. The South Node is moving into your fifth house, Scorpio. So this means you might be saying goodbye to a romance or goodbye to a love relationship that really wasn't part of your destiny or your highest timeline or for your highest good. So South Node is letting go of something. So, I mean, if you look at the combination of all these energies, no more heaviness in relationship with boyfriends, maybe no more delusion or girlfriends, no more delusion or over idealization, and you're just letting it all go. So there might be a relief for some Scorpio people to move on. Yeah, and for the commitment side of things, I've already talked about Uranus, so I don't need to repeat that one. But for those who are dreaming about making a second committed partnership, in other words, getting married for the second time, there's some good news here because Jupiter will be supporting those aspirations. He is moving through Cancer, the house of the second life partner in Western astrology. So that can bring a lot of joy if you're in a second marriage, a lot of love if you're in a second marriage, expansion and growth of the relationship. If you're looking to find a second relationship, well, I'm not seeing Saturn getting involved in this, but Jupiter can certainly bring in some lovely experiences, some happy experiences out in the dating scene if you're looking for a second life partner. Okay, the biggie for I think 2025 is Sagittarius, which Lada and I have already had a bit of a chat about. And ironically, Sagittarius is my sign that tends to like to go for a walk in the astro wheel, because Sagittarius loves walking in real life too. But this is one of those signs with the highly charged period for relationship and commitment. And this is happening between the 25th of May through the 9th of June again, because from the 25th of May, we've got Saturn moving into Aries, making a Vedic aspect to the seventh house, while Jupiter is sitting in the seventh house. And then Jupiter will move on, and that combination of the two energies will dissipate. But yeah, we talked about the impact of Jupiter and Saturn in the introduction to this video. So do check that out for all the details of how that might play out. And then Jupiter is going to leave your seventh house, and this is happening on the 9th of June. And this is going to bring an end to the experiences of Jupiter that I described in the introduction. And that might, you might be standing there with your tissue at your eye, because Jupiter brings so much goodness to relationships, blessing to your partner, expansion and growth of your partner. So that there's a saying goodbye to all that good stuff. Saturn, as we can see down here, has moved into the fifth house on, when does he move in? On the 25th of May, where he's going to form, like I said, this aspect to the seventh house. But on the 9th of June, he is making that aspect to the seventh house alone without Jupiter. So that brings more heaviness, maybe more duty required. So a relationship, if you're in one, Sagittarius, might feel heavier and more dutiful, requiring you to work harder to facilitate that relationship, to maintain that relationship. If you're single, Saturn aspect in the seventh house can bring a period of maybe blockage or tumbleweeds, restricting relationships forming, or it might be more difficult, more challenging to make a commitment when Saturn alone is aspecting the seventh house. So keep that in mind. You've got a good period happening, but then you've also got some heaviness going on. That said, Jupiter will be in the eighth house of intimacy, so going deeper with a partner. And let's face it, Sagittarius mightn't like hearing this. They are fun-loving after all, but sometimes when we go through the fire with a partner, it actually makes the relationship stronger and deeper. And I'm not saying you're about to go through a difficult time, but with Saturn aspecting the seventh house, like I said, heavier, more dutiful, etc., etc., while Jupiter is in the eighth house of deeper intimacy and sexual bonding. So this could actually be, if you're in a relationship already, for our beautiful Sagittarius friends, this could actually bring about a lot deeper, stronger foundation to the relationship, as you become more intimate with one another through sharing, maybe pushing through some difficulties and working hard on the partnership. Uranus is going to move into your seventh house as well, and this starts on the 7th of July till the 8th of November, and he's going to be there pretty much for the next 7 to 8 years after just a little trip back into Taurus again. And so I talked about this in the introduction with Lada, what it can bring about, what it manifests. Do listen to the introduction to find out, because it's really going to shake you out of any ruts in relationship. If you're single, it's going to cause you to meet some very interesting new people in your life that will similarly help shake you out of a rut. It's about really making things exciting and stirring things up in partnership, and maybe even getting a bit interested in experimenting as well with new styles of relationship. Sometimes sometimes Uranus can cause distance in a relationship, but in this case, with Jupiter in the eighth house of intimacy, I think that's more unlikely, at least at the beginning of this transit of Uranus in the seventh house. So Capricorn rising, sun and moon. We are, wow, what an interesting year it is for you. Uranus is leaving your fifth house and moving into the sixth house. So fifth house is love and romance and all the fun stuff. Seventh house is where we commit to something and make a serious contractual agreement. So Uranus leaving the fifth house brings an end to 7 years of ups and downs with love and romance. Now that can be with existing partners. The love might have been really on fire one day and then tumbleweed city and crickets chirping the next day. So it's really up and down with Uranus. And I spoke a bit further about that in the introduction if you want to find out more about what you're saying goodbye to. With Uranus leaving the fifth house of relationships, love, I should say. Jupiter is going into the seventh house for Capricorn people. And I talked about what Jupiter's influence can be like in the seventh house. It's actually quite beautiful. It's really, it's good for existing relationships. I like to see Saturn aspecting the seventh house to bring in a committed partnership, because we need Saturn for things to last and be worthwhile in the long term. But certainly Jupiter here is really good for any existing partnerships for our Capricorn friends. They'll be enhanced and deepened and strengthened and made more joyful, more fun, and you'll grow through your relationships, as I talked about also in the introduction with Lada. Now, if you're dreaming, Capricorn, about getting married for a second time, I'm afraid this is not the year for that to happen for you, because we've got this, unless there's certain other amazing, mind-blowing things happening in your natal chart, but we've got the South Node transiting the house of second marriage. And wherever the South Node is, it's excreting things out, saying goodbye to things and lessening the influence. So perhaps not a good year for a second marriage, but certainly if you are in a committed relationship, Jupiter's bringing some positivity. Now, Lada, your sign, Aquarius.
Yay.
Aquarius, right? I don't know if it's yay. I'm a bit nervous to talk about this one with you.
Oh,
You're
thank you.
I know. Lucky you've got other signs going on as well. But if you're Aquarius rising or sun or moon, well, you know that Pluto is moving through your first house for the next 20 years, and by opposition, stirring up the energy of the seventh house of commitment and partnership. So, this could manifest as you becoming more autonomous or realizing that you can be your own person within the framework of a relationship. It might increase, if you're a single person, it might increase your desire for independence. And perhaps not that Pluto is not interested in partnership. He is a very karmic planet that often influences karmic relationships, of course, but he's in the first house of you, so he's empowering this personal independence. So for some people, it will manifest that way. If you have your rising degrees in sort of the first degree to the fourth degree-ish, then it's most likely to bring about maybe a very intense relationship, a very deep relationship, possibly a karmic relationship that needs reworking as well. And we talked a bit in the introduction about some of the effects of Pluto when he is making an aspect to the seventh house. So that is also likely to be the case for our Aquarius rising sun or moon people. Certainly, I have seen in a number of charts, Pluto and compilation charts where, between two people, where Pluto is tremendously karmic and brings in this soulmate connections like the one we've been looking for since we were alive together in the golden age, that sort of thing. Very, very powerful. Now South Node, not Saturn, is leaving Libra and moving into your eighth house. I've just had this transit, and it it's not an easy one, I have to say. Now not all these things I'm going to mention manifested for me, but I'm going to list how the South Node in the eighth house can sometimes exhibit. It can be a loss of intimacy or a lessened desire for sex. It doesn't mean you won't have it, but maybe you're just not that, you know, get G'd up for it for one reason or another. Maybe life's too busy or the kids need attention or whatever. And it's harder to manifest that desire element. There can be difficulties with joint finances. There can be difficulties with a partner's money. However, because the North Node is down here in Pisces, your second house, Aquarius, you will be able to create more income and resources for yourself. And it may be your karmic responsibility, transiting South Node, to support your partner in some material way over the 18 months of this transit. Sometimes our partner, for one reason or another, something out of their control might be a cause of us having to spend more money, because North Node in the second house is also where we spend money. So we might be spending money for some reason for our partner. But again, I just mentioned we've got to see this as a way to pay our karmic dues. And if we can look at it that way, it makes the whole experience have more meaning, more purpose. And we like to have meaning and purpose in what's happening to us in life. So that's some of the ways that this South Node in the eighth house has been seen to exhibit. Saturn, in good news, is going to cease to aspect your, moving out of Pisces, is going to cease to aspect your eighth house. So that is also going to be a bit of a blessing to sort of lessen that energy of restriction and blockage directed at the eighth house of intimacy. And that's going to happen from the 25th of May. So that'll take the edge off maybe some of those difficulties that you may already have been sort of experiencing or undergoing. And of course, Jupiter's been in your fifth house. How lovely to have had Jupiter in the fifth house of love and romance. But he's moving out of that house in June this year. So you might notice that relationship romance is a little on the lesser side, and it might require more hard work to cultivate a bit of romance. It's pretty, yeah. I was going through all this in my head and thinking, I don't want to talk about this with Lada. This is her sign, and it's heavy duty. But these things, as we said in the beginning, there's cycles. They ebb and flow and change. You know, another year or two, and you'll have all the good stuff happening in relationships. But in the positive, while Jupiter is down here in the fifth house up until June, he's also making a Vedic aspect to the house of a second life partner. So if you're someone, Aquarius, who is looking for a second marriage or a second commitment of some description, then this can be very auspicious with that aspect forming as well. And the South Node leaving your ninth house of the second life partner. You have more chance of finding romance and joy with a second life partner once this node leaves your ninth house on the 11th of January. Okay. And last but not least, of course, Pisces, who are very patiently waiting for their sign, as always. For Pisces rising, they're not one of these key 5 signs that are having this special combination. They've actually had that not so long ago, that's caused a lot of Pisces people to be in new relationships by now. But Jupiter rules Pisces, and he's moving down here on the 6th of June into the 5th house. Sorry, the 9th of June, I should say, into the 5th house of romance. So for Pisces people, romance, playfulness in relationships, as well as, forming this aspect to the second life partner by Jupiter. This is wonderful for anyone looking to meet a second wife or husband, anyone in a love relationship. The energy of love and romance can be activated now thanks to Jupiter's energy here. South Node is leaving for Pisces people the 8th house. I'm very glad about this. End of a tough time where you might have had to support your partner or spend money because of a relationship of some description, or maybe the sex life wasn't what you would hope it would be. But and I'm not saying that was the case for me. Let me just quantify that with everybody. But in the 7th house now goes the South Node. So Pisces, you might find that you have more vitality or more energy or more entrepreneurism or more ideas or more initiative now than your partner. And so they might be looking to you to lead the relationship in some way or make decisions for the relationship or even support them in non-material ways now. But at least, you have the awareness because you've been through this transit that this is a way to pay your karma by supporting your partner emotionally, physically, or spiritually, helping your partner through this next phase of life in some way. So that's going to be the case for about 18 months. There's also yeah, it might be harder for Pisces people now to create committed relationships, especially first committed relationships, first marriages, because there is instead North Node in the first house, a stronger focus on the self for the next 18 months, a stronger focus on your independence, on your autonomy in some way, even within the context of relationships. So for many of our Pisces people, you are going to find it harder to put structures in place to create commitment. With eclipses occurring on the Virgo Pisces axis this year, you could expect some sort of surprises and sudden life-changing experiences regarding relationships or the relationship status of your life. For single people, sometimes, look, if we have a full moon, no, new moon over in Virgo, even with the South Node, sometimes that brings in a new love. So new moon eclipse in Virgo can bring in a new love, especially if it's falling on your relationship descendant manifestation point. So that can be the case, but more often than not, I think because of the North Node being in the first house for Pisces, it's going to stir up how you see relationship and how you feel about relationships. Really a case of as within, so without, that those eclipses might be stirring up the energy for Pisces people. It's more Virgo rising sun or moon people who will be receiving relationship in because the North Node is in their seventh house. So Saturn is going to cease aspecting your seventh house. Good news, Pisces, this May. And this is going to help your partner so much, help them to feel less restriction, less blockage in their life. All the Saturn seventh house energy that I spoke of in the introduction will now be lessened because Saturn has been aspecting the seventh house without Jupiter involved. And that brings a lot more heaviness to the seventh house of relationship, as we've discussed. So remember, though, we've got Saturn and the Node and South Node sort of crossing over one another. So we're not quite out of the woods yet. They're doing this tango here where South Node's going to be in the seventh house just as Saturn moves out and stops his aspect that's been restricting and blocking things. So we've still got a little bit of a ways to go. Saturn's also going to be aspecting the eighth house of partners' resources from the 25th of May through to the 2nd of the 9th, 2025 this year. So enjoy the time between now, January and May, and then enjoy the time from September to February 2026 when you're not having that limitation on your partner and their resources and your sex life as well. So encourage your partner Pisces to earn and save all they can during those timeframes that I just gave you in preparation for Saturn moving permanently into Aries in 2.5 years' time. And that's pretty much my analysis, Lada, for what's going on for all signs. What a long haul. Thanks for enduring all of that.
Thank you for all this incredible information and explaining it to us, the astrology behind it. You're a wonderful teacher, Kesenya. And if anyone wants to learn, Kesenia is offering 2 courses for relationships, for dating relationships, the nature of the relationships, the timing of the relationships. Are more than 1 or 2 or 3 marriages indicated using very simple techniques and very easy to explain. I am honored to have you as my guest and to hear your predictions. And you said it's scary, not at all. It was presented in a very gentle, meaningful way. Thank you so much. And any
Thank you. I
final
don't like
words
to
for
be
us?
I don't like to be a bearer of bad tidings, but and so I hope it's come across as positive because everything is cyclical. And when you're in astrology, you realize that pretty quickly that good times come and bad times come and good times go and bad times go. Everything moves in cycles. So I hope that it's a good year for everybody this year, love-wise, and if not love-wise, in some other way as the planet's influences. Thank you so much for having me, Lada. It's always an honor to be on your channel.
Thank you. I love speaking with you. I love having you. I love hearing your knowledge. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and be blessed.
Thank you.